Once upon a time, there was a branch line that was built to serve a nearby military base. Later, a station was built down the line to serve a nearby village as well. To control the trains on the line, a signal box was built and was handed to an experienced signalman. His name was Jacob Washington. He was proud of being a signalman and told his colleagues how important it really was to control the trains along the line. His colleagues often wished he would take some time off or go on holiday, taking some time away from the railway. But Jacob Washington never took a day off. He was so focused on his job, and he loved the railway. He began to also drink due to the fact that his staff was always pestering him on taking time off. One night, as he was locking his signal box, he didn't know that was the last time he was going to lock it. On that day, he had a big argument with the station master and had drank more than usual. He was still walking, but his head wasn't really paying attention. At a nearby junction, a midnight good had set it off for the night. Jacob Washington was just crossing a nearby level crossing when Jacob Washington was dead. Nobody attended his funeral. He had no family or friends. The only thing he had was the railway. After his death, the line started to lose traffic. Weeds and plants started to grow between sleepers. It got so bad that the last passenger train was a breakfast special. After that, nobody ever travelled to the station anymore. With no trains running on the line, the station and the signal box started to deteriorate. Happily, the line was bought by the North Western Railway, and the line was restored to its former glory, along with an extra new station just built up the line to serve a nearby farm village as well. As for the signal box, it was just left. As time went on, parts of the signal box started to disappear. Weeds, bushes grew all around it. It was just left to be abandoned. But unknown to everybody else, the signal box wasn't abandoned. It was haunted. One dark and spooky night, Rosie was waiting at the station next to the abandoned signal box. Just then, Rosie and her driver heard a bell code. It sounded like it was coming from the signal box. "That's funny," said the driver. "No one works in that signal box." Suddenly, Rosie saw a man standing on the balcony. Then he faded away. "Ghost!" screamed Rosie, and she raced back to the sheds. The next day, Rosie refused to go back onto the old military line. "There's a ghost haunting the signal box." "A ghost? That's a load of rubbish," said Henry. "There was a man standing on the signal box's balcony.
That's just a random bloke.
He faded away.
You just lost your marbles. Ghost indeed.
I saw what I saw, I swear, said Rosie.
I believe you, said her driver, but the Fat Controller won't be happy about this. And he was right. The Fat Controller had to put Henry to work on the old military line, pulling and pushing trucks as well as passenger trains. Haunted indeed, said Henry. Rosie's just a little girl. But all the same, he kept an eye on the signal box. That evening, he was keen to leave. Come on, back to the sheds we go. We have to take these cattle wagons back to the farm village. Can't we do that in the morning? No, said his driver. You're not scared, are you? No, certainly not. But as he pushed his trucks past the windmill, the sun began to set. It was dark when Henry arrived back at the station. It was very quiet. Then Henry, his driver, and fireman heard the bell code. Then they saw the man standing on the balcony. Then he faded away. Then Henry saw him on the tracks in front of him. The man looked coldly at Henry. Then he disappeared. Suddenly, there was a whistle. And a scream! Henry was petrified. Take me back! Take me back to the sheds, please! The next day, Henry told Rosie what he had saw. Both engines shivered. Did you see what I saw? Said Henry's fireman. Yes, but who was it? Said the driver. Jacob Washington, said a voice. The voice came from Edward. He was the signalman on that line, and he was a workaholic. Edward began telling the whole story of what happened to Jacob Washington. Unknown to the engines, the Fat Controller was nearby and heard the whole story. As soon as he got back to his office, he ordered that the signal box on the military line to be ripped up for good. Rosie and Henry and the Fat Controller watched the operation the very next day.
Will Jacob Washington go away now, sir?
Said Rosie. Perhaps she knows it's time to move on, said the Fat Controller. In any case, I don't need a signalman on this line. Henry and Rosie stayed until the signal box was no more. The two engines hoped that Mr. Washington had moved on. However, some nights you can still hear the sound of a bell code, which means that Jacob Washington is still there, refusing to leave.